Welcome to the Microsoft Security Insights Podcast with your hosts, Franklin Grimberg and Edward Walton, where we discuss Microsoft 365 security and Azure security news and products. Recorded January 12th, 2022. Good evening, Franklin. Good evening, Rod. How are you doing?
Doing great, Edward. How about yourself?
You know, I got first world problems, man. I'm whining today because I've been working all week. And folks are still calling. It's just real work. I had a request that was just out of the blue. Someone says, "Hey, I need you to write me a detection and alert. You know, that spans all of our stuff so that we can tell when people log in from Hong Kong." Why? We don't need to know why. We just need for you to do it. And so I go through and
maybe they're just wanting to, when they're in the area, to be able to pick up groceries on the way home. Like, yeah.
I kept my mouth shut. So I did it in 3 places, right? Oddly enough, I haven't done it in Sentinel. So I did it in Azure Active Directory. I also did it in MCAS. And I also used the user map workbook that Rod gave me. I had to manipulate it a little bit.
You know, so, I put instructions on how to do that on my blog, by the way, just in case. I knew you'd ask eventually.
Yeah. So I had to go in and play with it a little bit to get very specific because of,
yeah.
I don't know how much I can divulge without releasing the customer. They're bouncing around Asia.
So yeah, I got something for you. I think this would be useful for others. The individual, Clive, who originally created that user map.
A European colleague.
Yeah, he doesn't work for us anymore. Still a great guy. He reached out after I messed around with it a little bit and added that Hong Kong stuff. And he said, "Hey, we should just use a watch list to have, and then have the workbook pull the latitude and longitude in from the watch list." And I'm like, so I've got that on my schedule to mess around with here in the next few
That's
months.
A good idea because you can create a watch list very specific for that thing, and you can throw in name, location, lat long, known IP addresses if you have them, of ISPs.
Yep.
I wonder if you could do it for ASNs if someone finds themselves clever and try to just get on a broadband connection and look at the carrier.
Well, you could look at carriers, I guess. Yeah, you could. Yeah, that'd be a lot of work on the back end trying to keep that watch list up to date.
Yeah, I did something similar like that for MCAS, believe it or not, because a school system asked for something like that. That everybody's so mobile right now that you can't really nail it down to the big boys. Comcast, AT&T. Whatever the other ones are, because people were jumping on hotspots. Because if I jump on my Verizon hotspot on my phone as a hotspot, it's not bad.
Yeah,
it's not bad. But I'd like to see if you evolve that. I'll put mine in a little bit of a pause if that's going to be the way. No, actually, I'm going to play with it a little bit more, and then if I can incorporate the watch list into it, that may make sense.
And don't forget that a watch list does not have to be a watch list that's inside Sentinel. You can grab external data to make it easier to update.
And that's a good point, because before watch list ever existed, we still used that external data operator to pull data in from other places. We still, I think, I have links somewhere, but there's the whole Azure IP address ranges that's maintained and sitting out on a GitHub repository somewhere, which is useful. And somebody maintains that stuff. If somebody's going to maintain it on a GitHub repository, why use a watch list anyway?
Yeah, just the same way that someone maintains the job.
No, that's the thing, right? It has to be maintained. I don't know, having a discussion this week about one of Clive's workbooks, and they're like, I always use Clive's workbook. I'm like, well, as long as it stays up to date now, there's nothing wrong with that. But
unless he's maintain it to try to achieve an MVP or just be relevant in the industry, right? Like not my job anymore, right? But let me tell you something about stuff like that. It's like open source. If this is a coin, open source, best effort.
Well, yeah, we don't have to go down there.
We'll go down there, bro.
So,
man,
soapbox about
All right,
that.
all right.
everybody
So,
get the energy back up. I was up. You guys talked me down. Now I'm leveling off. What's
all right,
going on
all right.
today?
So I want to drive you crazy a little bit because I want to call out Brody, who this week is jumping out of helicopters or something like that. I don't know what he's doing. But I want to follow up from last week's episode about Brody. Now, he did lose the competition, even though we said all these nice things about him. Then he, right after the show, he goes and posts on LinkedIn that he passed the test. And here's what he said.
Oh, yeah.
Friendly challenge on the Microsoft Security Insights podcast pushed me to buckle down and study, successfully passing the SC 200 exam, beating Edward Walton by 1 day. He didn't bring up the fact that he actually lost the overall competition. And you actually liked the comment,
I did.
So, I mean, come on, you got to call him out here. Edward. This is your chance.
Well, I'll call him out 1-to-1. That's not something you do publicly. I'm just, I'm happy that people are going after these certs. It's important to have that knowledge. So, if Brody can be, someone that someone else aspires to be, that's great.
You guys are taking it way too easy on him.
I can totally appreciate Brody's perspective, right? He understood to beat a man, you got to beat the man. So he's second place. He technically is second place, right?
Right.
And the only reason he got to the day before me because the dumb testing center wasn't open on Mondays, and I didn't want to take any chances trying to do it proctored. Like my life, the way my luck goes with exams. But I sent him a very nice care package, and it should shame him. So when he gets back, he's gonna have a very nice care package.
I think that when he gets back from jumping out of helicopter skiing, he's not going to care about any of this stuff, to be honest with you. Which is
he's gonna be too sore. Is he really gonna jump out of a helicopter like in James Bond and hit the slopes on the ski?
That's what he said. I would.
He said his out of box out of the office message email. Notice there's a link there, and it shows where like the helicopter takes you up to the top of this mountain, puts you down, and then you ski down this huge mountain. So because the only way up there is by helicopter. So yeah, that's so I think when he gets back, he's going to be he'll have enjoyed that vacation so much that he won't care about anything we're saying. So good for him.
All he needs now is a submachine gun and some snow bunnies.
My biggest thing, and I'll tell bro, I'm not impressed. My wife jumped out of helicopters in the Army before she broke her feet. Literally.
That would be so
break your feet. That's why she had to separate from the Army. The surgery. But hey, man, this is a busy week so far. I'm learning a lot. I've really delved down. Rod and I've had some good conversation about approaches to learning KQL. I'm trying multiple ways whenever I think I find one way. But I've really been going through his Learn KQL course. I've also gone through some of the embedded links like Kusto Knight, that guy. I like his stuff, his writing style. And what I've also started doing also is, in addition to just reading the docs, when I ask you guys for help and you guys give me something, I go back and I reverse engineer the query. I was on a call with Ren Wu and Matt Egan, and we were talking about 2 queries that they wrote, because the big thing out there is risk analysis score, and that Sentinel doesn't do it. So Egan wrote 2 queries. One can create an output based on tactics, and one can do a risk base also. It's actually pretty slick. I'll share it with you guys out of band and take a look at. And so he and I are working on something, and then he wrote a article and wrote a solution around RDAP to get away from the traditional WHOIS, the new RDAP, registered domain, because one customer wanted to know. I don't know why they were looking at malicious domains from the time of creation of a domain to the time it was being used. That was super important in there with ngram analysis, freedomist something. I forget this long scientist name for analytics stuff. Oh my head. but I took the query and wasn't intimidated by it. I said, let me understand this. I didn't know make bag was an actual syntax.
Yeah. Make bag. Yep. Make list, make bag, unpack. Yeah. All of it.
I thought he was yanking my chain, like traveling, like, okay, you know, bag, unbag, unpacked. I'm like, what's this? Right. But I'm actually getting into it.
Well,
this has been a good learning month.
The bottom line is anybody that's dealing with any sort of logs needs to learn KQL. It's been driving me crazy in the certification world that KQL is not being pushed more in the other Azure related exams, which drives me crazy. Only when you're dealing with Sentinel, they say, oh, we have to do it. But if you're, I don't know, AZ-104, the administrator or whatever, I don't know. I forget the other ones. It's like, you really need to know KQL if you're doing any administrative work at all.
Yeah. I would have thought it would be more emphasized the way you're talking about it, because especially if someone is a huge consumer of Azure Monitor, you know, app analytics, insight analytics. But you're right, those exams don't really emphasize that, right? It's more about what does the workload do. But KQL is that super key, right? Yeah. It allows you to do so many things now, right? But I don't want to derail the show. We had a guest. He had to push because he's moving from Scotland to Redmond.
Oh, wow.
He didn't realize his relocation got approved, and it was either move now or wait another 6. Yeah. So he's headed to Redmond. So that would be, he's going to come on and talk about MDI. I don't know if I should say his name. People, don't say that. But he's going to come on and talk to us about MDI. I sent you guys the schedule of our guests, so I've confirmed everybody. And we should be good.
Oh yeah.
So Rod, you're gonna
Rod's going to talk about. Rod's moving over and co-host a guest tonight, and he's going to speak about KQL coffee mugs. He moved on from elephant poop coffee mugs to KQL coffee mugs.
Well, my elephant coffee mug, the lid broke, so I had to do something.
Yeah, here's my coffee mug, right there to our listeners. So
Rod's going to talk about the KQL learning that he's been putting together for everyone to use. And so take it away, Rod.
All right. So Ed kind of hit the nail on the head there when he started talking about KQL, and Frank also in relation to that, I think we need better exposure to our customers and anyone using Azure to KQL, right? So this is something over the course of, my tenure at Microsoft, working with Microsoft Sentinel for the past 3 years or so, I just kind of assumed and kind of took for granted, working with KQL, working with this query language. I mean, it's easy, it's simple to learn. Things are pretty logical, the flow and stuff like this. So imagine my shock when I think it was early November, sitting in a meeting here at Microsoft, and someone suggested that KQL was the barrier to customers using things like Microsoft Sentinel and Defender and stuff like that. And I thought that was just it should just absolutely not be. So I've been thinking about it for a while anyway, and I've delivered a lot of KQL workshops in addition to the Microsoft Sentinel. I've delivered KQL workshops on their own for, the past year and a half, something like that. So, and to me, I thought it was kind of simple and pretty easy to learn. And I'll tell you, I'm not Mr. Super Techie. This stuff was pretty easy to pick up as I went along. Customers ask questions. They're looking for things in the data. It'd take me 5-10 minutes looking through the documentation to find that stuff. But again, I've done development in the past. I work with scripts, PowerShell, and stuff like that. So kind of that logical flow, I guess, kind of was a little bit of a help to me. But to hear that KQL is a barrier for our customers using things like Microsoft Sentinel, or at least in some respects, using it to their best capability, I thought that should absolutely never be. So I started a series, which I titled Must Learn KQL and started on my blog site. And I thought, well, let's just go down the whole path. Let's make this kind of a storyline where we start from scratch and we start moving down through the different operators and commands for KQL. And let's kind of take a logical perspective, and it's kind of like a storybook. And I thought, we'll start with our resources. We'll describe what KQL is, why it exists, because a lot of people don't realize that, or don't know where its basis comes from and things like that. And then let's just start from scratch, right? We'll start with our search queries. We'll start producing some logical steps. And now that we know we can search for things, let's do something with that data. So literally this is, and I didn't expect this either, but the way that it's being done, I guess, some people like it. It's just literally taken off and exploded on its own. So anyone can go to aka.ms/must-learn-KQL. Takes you to my GitHub repository for that. There's the TOC for the series, how far that I've gotten so far. In fact, I'll share a screen here just so see that.
One thing, easy is relative. So first thing, I'll go back and say, you say it is easy, I'll say it's not. Number two, I'm going to rebut that you are not techie. You are techie. You're absolutely solid, rock solid, right? So there's a limit to humbleness, right? And number three, the reason that people say that the KQL is onerous and it's a blocker, it is not because of a lack of training material of sorts. It is just all over the place. And the reason, in my personal opinion, that your endeavor with this Learn KQL, you brought it all together. And then I took what you did, and I created a customer-facing learning document for Sentinel and KQL, and at the very top, your blog and Must Learn KQL. When I tell you, I had a customer rave about it. Like, finally, you guys got it right. Quit telling me to go to docs.microsoft.com. This is, and they are using it, and now the whole team has to read your KQL. I can't tell you who the customer is. They make soda pop, but they're doing it now, right? So kudos to and good looking to putting that together, man. Because now, the ninja training was an approach, but it really wasn't as focused as you thought it was. So I don't want to slight anybody who put this Sentinel ninja training together. But it looked like it was focused on topics, but the person that created it got to control what you learn. Within your KQL, I'm bouncing in between topics. The flow is whichever one you want to go to, right?
Yeah.
And so
and the flow, you can go wherever you want to. I highly recommend start from scratch, even if you think you know that topic. I'm going to include some stuff in there and probably some perspective that you've never heard before, because that's just how I am. I kind of apply that to how I use it myself. But this was intended, absolutely intended to be customer facing and intended to kind of pull together all the learning aspects, all those different types of learning, right? So we've got a blog series where people can read it, a couple new blog pieces a week. There's a ebook every time there's a new blog post that's released. In fact, I'm supposed to, and if you can see that, the extend operators actually due this week. Today was like one of the worst days of the year. I know we're very early into the year, but oh my goodness. I had to replace my sump pump this morning. It broke. So, I've got a messy basement. Fortunately, and kudos to Menards, I ordered my sump pump at 7:00. It qualified for free home delivery, and I had it by 9:00, and I was starting to put it in around 9:00 this morning. So I intended to get this part 13 out today, but it's probably going to be tomorrow or even Friday morning at this point. But you can see it's it's kind of going in that kind of logical order. And what else happened today? Oh yeah, I talk about that later. Brody's on his little trip. My trip for the end of the month got canceled, so it's just not been a great day. Anyway, I intended for that to come out this week or today. It'll probably, like I said, probably be tomorrow or the next day. But I'm trying to at least get a couple out each week to try to keep people interested and keep people engaged and continuing to follow. Because that's another thing that really bothers me a lot of times is, somebody that's a blogger and they start a series and then 6 months later you realize that they stopped at part 2 and promised part 100. So I'm just really going to be focused on this. This is actually part of my impact at work. So me doing this is where kind of I get my kudos and stuff like this, because this is actually part of my job. So it all works out. The other piece of this, and I mentioned it, this series kind of exploded. So so there's table of contents starting from scratch. We're just finished the render operator, talking about graphs and pie charts and stuff like that. Extend operator is going to be due this week. So we're creating our own columns of data with our query results. One of the things that I thought would be interesting to try to drum up some additional interest for this series, because I'm trying to do everything I can as part of this series to get folks at Microsoft interested enough so that they tell their customers about it, and that customers interested enough about it so that they'll learn KQL. I don't want, I appreciate you, Ed, but I don't want the pat on the back for this. To me, this is the ultimate goal here, is to enable our customers to understand KQL. My goal here is not to make anyone a KQL pro or a KQL guru. My intent here is, from a security perspective, to be able to look at a KQL query and just understand what each line is. You don't even have to write it yourself. Just understand what line is, because from a security perspective, you're looking for very specific things. You're looking for, compromised accounts. You're looking for password spray or hash attack, whatever it happens to be. It's the results that are ultimately the most important part of that query. So I don't care what query language you use. Fortunately, we have KQL, which is powerful because it uses the power of the cloud, the compute and the clustering and stuff like that. So you can get results very quickly, but it's really, really simple and easy to learn, right? So KQL is awesome. It doesn't matter what the query language is, as long as the results are something that's going to show you that there's a potential threat in your environment, right? So my goal here is not to turn anybody a KQL pro. My guess is, as what has happened to me, just by digging in and, figuring things out myself, eventually you will start going, oh my goodness, I love this query language and I want people to be excited about it and continue their own learning. But as long as they can take this series and look at this query line by line and figure out what the results are, that's key. That's the most important thing.
And if I can,
one of the things that I found is that when you take a look at the reference with inside Docs, or even I think it was Pluralsight had a course.
They still do, yeah.
It was very overwhelming, because each of those go over everything in detail, right? And the problem is that what you're going to use 80% of the time is only 20% of that. So this focuses you into what you need to know basis, and then you can go out and research the other things if you run into that scenario where you're not used to. I think that people coming over for me, one of the challenges that I had when I was really, we'll talk about schema here in a minute that I see you mention out there. The piping, understanding piping, even though I completely understand that from, working in Linux and PowerShell and everything else. When I write queries, I am still thinking transact SQL, database, or whatever. Yeah. And I still make mistakes because of not thinking through the piping that needs to take place. What's actually going first and next with inside, the order that things are happening, which is not really the typical way that you would see with inside a SQL server. So that's a very important point. Now, the thing is that what I don't think customers understand is that KQL is easy. They have to get over that and just understand, yes, it's easy. I only have to know this. I only have to move forward with this. but I need to know my data and my structures and where it's at. And so I think that when you start with a process of teaching them about search and going through that to say, oh, look, now I can find the data, because they're not going to memorize everything about where their data is and so on in there. So I'll let you follow up with what I said. I know you're bringing up some things here.
One thing that, to go back to what you're talking about is, the approach on learning it is going to be different. So it's not so much important of your learning, steps. It is being able to get access to the stuff when you need to understand this next thing. You were saying piping. One of the things I had the most difficulty with was, join union commands and everything else. But if I had to give somebody advice, everybody learns different. I took workbooks and I started dissecting them out of Sentinel. And so I would change something in the workbook, save it, and then go back and see what was broken. Then I understood what that was. Like, oh, that's what that line did.
Yeah.
And so I would copy it, put it away, and then put it back in, run the workbook, see if it healed itself or did I do it correctly, and then the visualization would come back. I stumbled upon that a year into me working with KQL, right? Like, just do the workbooks. And workbooks are my favorite feature, second favorite feature in Sentinel. Biggest reasons, people write them, they're shared, and they're easy to copy, right?
Let me guess, your first favorite feature is the integration with MCAS.
Oh, I thought it was watchlist.
There's watchlist. There you go. No, my first favorite rule, my first favorite feature is the Yuba, right? I love the entity behavior. I absolutely love the way that goes, right? Because and then that really, our previous guest, last guest, Innocent, cemented that for me. Understanding what's going on in that black box, right? And then if you want to take the box, take the top off to make it a little bit better. That was the second stage that he had. And then if you really want to get in to bring your own, you just take the box out, you take it out and you stick your stuff in there, right? So back to you, Mr. Trent. Sorry for that. Just want to, and then last thing is, you do need a pat on the back. And I'll tell you why. I don't pat second and third places on the back.
So Brody didn't get a pat on the back?
You got a kick in the. So what were you saying now? About. Yeah.
Oh my goodness. I feel so bad for him. He's great though.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah. Brody's awesome. Oh, right. So Frank was talking about the pipes, things like that. Even before this series, I got into even all of that. That's part of that. You talked about the schema. One of the things I pulled up, I mean, I've literally gone through, even before getting into examples and stuff like that, it's literally, I want people to understand this. So there is kind of a standard workflow, right? So I even have the common, there's the table you're querying, there's your different commands. Generally, from a logical perspective, we filter data, then we aggregate the data in some way with summarize. We've already covered that already in the series. How to order the data, and then also how to modify the columns, which we'll talk about, project and extend here shortly in the series. But, I want people to be able to understand not just the queries themselves, but also the reasons why behind this stuff. Because I think too, a lot of times, particularly the Ninja stuff and other aspects of that, just like Frank was talking, a lot of times we just try to overwhelm people with information, right? I know all of this, so I'm going to give it to you. And at least with this series, I'm trying to just be really just small little valuable nuggets of information that kind of leads to the next. Every part up here, every part of this series, there's hands-on. So this series is unique in that respect. For example, so if we go to say like the count operator, right? There's this thing that we call internally at Microsoft called the KQL playground. All right. Every part of this series has example queries, commented all the way throughout. A lot of times learning, I'm going to hand you a query and I'm just going to have you run it and look at the results and, oh, isn't that neat? Everything's explained as it goes through. being extremely careful and mindful about that. But there's a live demo environment that's attached to this series, right? So I can take this query that has been posted here. I can copy and paste it if I want to. I try to get folks to, instead of just copying and pasting, going to the KQL Playground and try to use that query and just kind of type it in. Because I'm the type of person, if I start typing things in, I'm going to remember it. It's going to be a little bit more meaningful to me, right? So this playground, though, is publicly available to all of our customers. If you go to aka.ms/LA log analytics demo, everyone has the capability to be able to go here and do this hands-on. So not only is it in content format from a blog, there's also the book. If we go back to, let's go here, you go to Must Learn KQL. There's also the book version, which is, I think it's up to, I forget, it was updated yesterday, which is updated all the time. But there's also a demo environment available to this series as well. So it literally combines. And then I had someone contact me last week, and I hope they follow through with it. But he was like, I love this series so much. I would like to, if you wouldn't mind, if I could take your examples and stuff like that and the things in that KQL Playground, and would you mind if I just did videos of it? And you could include the videos in your, I thought, oh my goodness, that's so super awesome. So I hope he follows through with it. I have to follow up because I haven't heard back, but I would think that would be super awesome. KQL is Microsoft Sentinel is positioned as a leader for SEAMs and this type of tool in the industry for a number of reasons, obviously, because of the technology and how it's being developed and things like that, and because of customer requests and how those are fulfilled. But at the same time, there's no other tool like this that has a query language like this, and we make it so absolutely easy to share this stuff on your own GitHub repo and your own blog post with your colleagues and stuff like this. KQL literally is kind of the linchpin of this community stuff, right, for Microsoft Sentinel. And to me, I think it's absolutely a huge part of how this community has literally grown on its own. So I think it's absolutely that important, not just to learn it, but also to get involved and not be one of those IT folks that literally creates something and just hoards it. You have the capability to be able to share this with everybody else.
And the thing about it is so shareable.
Oh yeah.
So when I ask you guys for help, whether it be you, Egan, Ren, Clive, whomever, and you guys write it for me, I'm more diligent. I won't always say I was, because a lot of times I'm in the fire and you guys bail me. But now when I get it, whether I solve the issue right away, I go back to look at what you wrote to understand it, because it is so recyclable, right? You can help somebody else with it, right? We were talking about user map location on lat long and IP address, and how that took a life of its own already. And you wrote a blog about it, but it was because you could do these things, right? I love that, being able to, hey man, I'm stuck. I need to be able to do this. I run this. Give me a minute. Just send you a text file. Let me know how that works.
Right? Yeah. Well, even in the interface itself, see, and I covered this in the series, but it's really easy to share stuff. I can send the link to somebody. I can send the entire query text. I can dump it to the GitHub repository for Microsoft Sentinel if I want to do that. We make it
so let me tell you what's not easy to share. Hey, I'm working with MDO. I'm trying to write this phishing policy with this targeted attack, blah, 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 blah. You ever tried to figure out how to take a policy and share it out of, MDO to it? I was like, I should have just told them how to call the API, right?
Yeah.
And, but I'm taking screenshots. Go here, point the arrow, using Snagit. So shame on Edward, because Edward would introduce the KQL 2.5 years ago, and I didn't focus on it. I think I told you that story, Rod.
Yeah. it will hit everyone eventually. And I focus
like
on
Omicron.
it. Yeah, I focus on it from a security perspective, right? But KQL is literally anything data centric within the cloud, right? KQL
It
is
stands for keyword query language, right?
no.
I'm
No.
kidding.
Um,
There
Hey,
is
but that's the
another
actual
there.
thing, though.
I know. That's why I'm messing.
Oh, okay.
So,
yeah.
so let's talk about coffee cups here.
All right. So,
Woohoo!
oh yeah, you. During the holiday, one of my good friends, John Saville, he has this amazing YouTube channel. I don't know. He has like 40, 50,000 subscribers, something like that. He does a
like
weekly.
close. He's over 90 now, close to.
Oh, is
100.
it 90? Holy
You're
crap.
talking about the dude with the massive python for arms?
Yeah, he's a triathlete. I've known him for years. He's a good guy. Before I started working with Microsoft, I used to run conferences and I'd have him come in and speak for me. He's amazing. Now that's a technical person. But I asked him what he was doing because I know that he sells T-shirts, but he had all his proceeds for the T-shirt sales because people wanted them. They thought they were super, super awesome. All the proceeds went to some sort of charity, and I contacted him. I said, "Hi, how are you doing this?" So he gave me the deets. And what I ended up doing during the holiday was just creating this Must Learn KQL merch store. I call it merch because my kids call it merch. It's a store. And during the holiday, I had a Christmas version of this cup, and I have one of these. I'm actually going to have a contest for the series here shortly, so somebody can get a hold of one of these. It's been deprecated until next Christmas, right? So, and the proceeds for that, people came in. This blew my mind. We sent about almost $250 to St. Jude's over the holidays.
Yes, St. Jude's one of my charity endeavors.
Yeah. So literally everything that's done here gets sent to St. Jude's. People order it. The coffee mugs are outrageously expensive, but about
no, they're not. No.
Well,
$15.99 for and for those, we're on Twitch, you can't actually see it, but if you go and look at the show notes, we'll make sure it's in there. It's a great mug. Shame on Ed once again for not ordering one. I'll make sure I do it. Yeah. But I was super stoked to understand he went to St. Jude's. Little known fact, I used to sit on St. Jude's external charity board. So I was on the board for a couple of years. So I was always in Tennessee. And then another thing that this will relate to you, Rod, their St. Jude's half marathon to marathon up in Memphis, one of the best races going.
Oh, wow, I didn't know that.
And then you get to go to Bill Street and hang out.
They contacted me over Twitter this past week, thanking me for the money that
and not to shame you. I'm not shaming anybody. Yeah, $250 a night. I think 2 years ago, I had a bleeding heart after I went there and I had to tour the hospital for a new branch that was being open. Man, I think I donated like 10 grand. And I'm like,
yeah,
you do not understand the impact that organization has until you go there and you see it. I'm a tough guy, man. My eyes kept leaking water.
Yeah, it's just one of those charities really that just kind of really hits me, so
mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely.
Not like Frank. Frank is just stoic, just like I just had to do it. I'm sorry. Go ahead, man. Yeah, I'm one last thing before we move on.
Yeah.
Ain't no roll tide. Alabama bites the dust. How about that? For those that are Alabama fans, go Dogs. Right? They're tearing up Georgia right now. Oh my God. My wife was even watching the game. And she was screaming at the TV, "Don't F this up." And neither one of us went to Georgia, right? I went to Tech and she went somewhere else, right? And where did my wife go to school at? I forget. I'm sorry, man. Go ahead. You got to put the color commentary in there, right? Go ahead.
No. I appreciate that. So I guess that's an indication we need a Go Dogs Must Learn KQL mug. So I'll do that this next week.
No, I didn't say that now.
Oh, all right. I could do it. I mean, yeah, if that's what it takes. No. Yeah. Like one of those commercials, I'll the heartstrings, right? I'll do something, but yeah, here's the primary mug. And in fact, I think I updated that recently. And here's the New Year's resolution mug, learning KQL in 2022. But there's this brand new mug. This is what I think Frank was alluding to recently.
Who's that? Jacques Cousteau.
What is KQL named after?
Jacques Cousteau. You want to know something that's cool?
Cousteau query language.
His son is just like his dad. Listen to his son interview on NPR on Wait, Don't Tell Me. Really cool.
I loved watching this show growing up.
Yep, me too.
Goodness. Absolutely loved it. Love
I watched that, and I watched Mutual Omaha Wild Kingdom.
Yep. Mutual Omaha. And then, of course, Wide World of Disney afterwards.
I didn't like
Rod,
that.
do the cups ship international, or is it only U.S. based?
They do ship international. It's a pretty good organization. It's Teespring. I've actually.
Do they just print them over? Do they print them in the different country and
I don't know how they
ship
do that.
them?
They may be on a barge somewhere out in the ocean, just like everything else.
Yeah, I think they might print local and ship it. That would make more sense than.
I've heard of them and never used them for my nonprofit. We have another. We use a couple of the entities. I won't give them promotion unless they sponsor, but I'm looking at it now.
This is the only one. This is the only one that would do that type of sponsorship. I contacted them. That's what John gave me that tip. So you literally just send them an email and say, hey, any profits that come in, this is the charity that I want you to send it to. And I get a notification about once a week that says, hey, we have X amount of money that's going to St. Jude this week. I'm like, awesome.
It's a lot easier.
When about $450, $500 or something like that that's been sent so far.
Yeah, when you have to deal with the money side, it's better.
Yeah, it's actually pretty slick, man. I'm gonna add them to my vendor list for my nonprofit so I can do some of this stuff. Yeah.
So like I said, I mean, this series, which I thought was just going to be, hey, I'm just going to create something simple, some easy way to learn KQL. This thing has just exploded into everything. I don't know. I get commentary from people internally constantly. They're sending it to their customers. The customers love it. So if you look at the TOC, I have it out to about part 22 when we start building functions. Part 21 is when we're going to take all of this knowledge and actually do something with it, build an analytics rule from scratch. And the example that I'm using throughout is the exact same example. So all we do is just add one line or one or two lines to the query each time, right? So by the time we get to part 21, you're going to have your own analytics rule that you just created from scratch.
Mm-hmm.
But my guess is this is going to go far beyond part 22. So,
what? Another thing that's sort of odd is that the proliferation of in-person training that was real big in the 2000s, the 90s to 2000s, and as we flipped over in 2010, they don't offer courses. So remember, if you wanted training, you went to New Horizons, Global Knowledge, all these places. They're still around, but they don't do that. And then, correct me if I'm wrong, Franklin. As an MCT, we get access to the mock stuff. Is there a mock anything with KQL official curriculum? I've not seen it other than the 200. Is there anything else?
No, it's just that.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
a couple things here so to my own horn.
I think so. I've had discussions about that, and it came down to, okay, KQL is too large of a language. I mean, when you take a look at the full KQL reference, so keeping it specific to the tool that you're using, like what's in SC200 and like what Rod has done here, it just makes more sense for them currently to go that route. Well, so one of the things is that they have, which I did not realize, is that they actually have a PowerShell course, just a straight up PowerShell course.
And how's that not as expensive. And if you're teaching C, Sharp, Go, or any of the other languages that decide for that, so I take that as you can't find the expertise to write it. That's what it is. Because if Udemy is doing it, Pluralsight is doing it, I think what
Would
they
you
did
want a
was
certification on KQL alone?
it's a developer language. Why can't you not a developer language? It's a query language. Why not have it in a fashion where, because it's not, KQL is not Sentinel. It is
No, it's everything.
yeah. It's not that. You could use that for. Well, it goes back to circle around and
Do
say,
they
well,
have
why
do
does
they
that
have a
work?
Transact SQL test?
No.
I don't know. I that I
I
guess
think you need to learn it in relation to what your focus is. KQL is
Yeah.
used for Intune, so KQL should be part of whatever. I don't know if there's an Intune course.
It's not.
Yeah, but it should be part of whatever your focus is. You learn KQL in relation to what you want to use it for.
That is very accurate, but at the same time, if I learned KQL because we moved away from SCUM, went to Azure Monitor, I don't lose the KQL knowledge I had when I decided someone says, hey, man, we're going to deploy Sentinel. Do you know anything? You're like, oh, yeah.
Well, at that point, you just build on it. You already have the base knowledge. You just apply. It's kind of like you're applying modules, your little add-ons, right?
Mm-hmm. You know who we need to find an official spokesperson like, Matthew McConnell, right? You guys remember the old networking course called Router God when they had Britney Spears talking about OSPF?
Britney Spears.
And then they had Freddie Mercury. He was talking about BGP.
Oops, she did it again.
But it Router God, I think it's still around. I'll ping it. But it was a parody that would go in and it would have celebrities talk about, networking technologies. And it was so funny. I think it's still out there.
Didn't some of the cast of Friends do like Windows 95 or something like that?
Something like that. Well, I'm gonna look at it.
Yeah.
Right.
A couple other things while you're doing that. So it's easy to find the KQL series, right? aka.ms/must learn KQL. Real easy to get to, but product team is so nicely listed me above the Pluralsight training now. 100 trainings and skilling resources. So we are starting to push it. And really that meeting that I talked about that we had in early November, it was determined that, hey, we need to do something with this KQL, kind of get this barrier out of the way. And in fact, I don't know if anyone's seen this recently, but there's an actual workbook that's been released for Microsoft Sentinel. It exists within any Microsoft Sentinel environment. It has KQL in it. It's advanced KQL for Microsoft Sentinel. And in fact, it does have a lot of really cool stuff in here. But
I gave it to a customer today. We enabled the workbook in their environment as part of the POC. Do you
Yeah.
know one of the other compelling reasons that, not only because of this, but because your product is better than the Pluralsight stuff, I'll say it. The Pluralsight courses are no longer free.
Yeah. All right. Yep. And that original Pluralsight course is really old.
It is old.
Yeah. So I was going to actually demo this thing while we were here tonight, but I'm not going to because I sent this along just a little bit ago. It's got a bug in it. So anyway, it's still being ironed out. But
it works in my lab flawlessly.
Not the filter. You go into the filter section, which is my favorite because that's what we're doing. We're searching for things.
All right, I'm gonna do it.
Because this link right here opens up, doesn't open up all the data, all the tables.
Mm-hmm.
It's supposed to use the same demo tenant that I'm using for the series, but you can see right now only application insight tables are open based on that link right there. So.
That's great. And what do you want me to do to make sure it's broken?
Yeah, click on filter.
Filter.
Just the top one's good enough. Go down to try it in the LA demo.
Let me see here. So I clicked on filter, and it says most cases, blah, 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 where operator project, simple. Try it in LA demo.
Yep.
Once again, Rod proves me wrong. Broken.
Yeah.
All right.
But the link's messed up. That's all. We'll fix it. But everything else so far that I've dealing with date time's a good one. I bet you this works. Time generated.
I wonder why they chose application insights for the filter.
It's just for that one. So if I go into this one, for example, it's going to work. I bet it will work because the link is correct. Right. So it's just that one, the filter section, which is absolutely the most important section. Well, okay, I take this back because the way that it copies this stuff over, it literally runs all the queries together. It's taken all 3 or 4 of those queries. So you have to actually insert a line for it to work. But okay. That query will work though. I promise you.
Can I?
Anyway, it's pretty neat to be able to have that KQL learning directly in Microsoft Sentinel. So you could spend some time. Customers can spend a lot of time with that.
And my customer that I showed it to today was stoked about it. They was like, it gets better and better. I said, hey man, just give the product time to mature, right?
Oh my goodness. I saw some things yesterday that's coming. Customers are going to absolutely love us.
Yep, I did too. Yeah, there's going to be some good stuff that's coming out.
So there's that. Customers can use that as well. But like I said, I'm going to continue this series throughout. That extend operator thing should be tomorrow, I would guess. So.
All right, when you can have all the playbooks, all these books, I got to tell you, the
workbooks,
not workbooks,
playbooks,
notebook.
No. Notebooks. There you go. So when
we're running out of
notebook
books
series going to be done?
Let's see. We do have. Is it tomorrow?
But that's in conjunction with Chi, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So we have upcoming another training webinar. I guess that is next week. I have to double check.
Yeah, once again, I'm not invited, but that's okay.
What?
All right, gentlemen, we're running up against time here.
We're on Twitch, but we know that our viewership is not as high as our listenership. But I encourage individuals to go to Twitch, and then if Frank ever makes excuse me, if Frank's ever makes nice with YouTube, we can put it back on there. Once they remove our permanent ban. I'm expecting Twitter to ban us next. All right.
Just post bunches of videos of cats. Just a bunch. They'll let you back on, and then you can just start.
Yeah, we can do that, Franklin. We can obfuscate our true intentions by posting cat videos or puppy videos, right?
As soon as YouTube learns that SharePoint lists is not age-restricted content, then I won't be worried about it.
Well, yeah. Hey, last thing. Matt Zorich, awesome Australian, awesome Aussie, has started 101 days ago. Hashtag 365 days of KQL, and literally every day for the past 101 days, he's posted a brand new, really cool KQL query.
Is he on Twitter, or is he? How can I find what's this guy's
Twitter? Name? Yep. Just follow if you just want to follow that hashtag. 365 days of KQL.
He's in our Discord too, by the way.
Is he? Awesome. Because oh my goodness, the dude is phenomenal. The queries.
Shout out, Mark. Come on the show, man. Don't do us like that. Don't big time us, Mark.
Matt, it's Matt.
Yeah.
Don't big time us, Matt.
on GitHub, he's reprise 99, and there's all his queries that he's written.
REPRISE 99.
Yeah, on GitHub. Yeah,
Ooh,
I had
type it in.
to make mention of that because everything that he's released, I've been like, oh my goodness, he
I
has
don't
more
wanna
time
get-
than I do. I don't know. I don't think so. I'm just kidding.
All right, I don't want to get a text from Edward's wife saying, "Hey, let him go."
Oh,
So
yeah.
Yeah. So, great podcast. We got some good things coming up. We tease some stuff. We're gonna actually try to bring it to fruition and make it. We're gonna realize it. But we got a pretty good swath of guests to close out January, and hopefully everybody that stays on schedule closes out February. I'll start working on a March guest. But I would ask our listeners in our Discord channel, if there's something you want to hear, let us know so we can go line up the skill set or the experience to be able to bring to you. So you don't just have to rely on us Yahoos to figure out what's important, right? Big shout out to Asip, our comrade and peer over in the UK. If you listen to the show, share your good news with the rest of the team. I've been working with him with some MD5 and SHA 256 stuff over the day. He asked me a couple of questions. I'm like, I don't know. Let me go look it up real quick. So that's it, man. I'm looking forward to the podcast this year. Continue to do good things. I'm get it learned up. I guess I'm gonna have to put Twitter on this. I haven't been on Twitter in so long. You know.
Well, listen. I hope you had a great vacation, Brody. I know you'll listen to this later. So.
But it's like, I beat Ed, and then they put in, asterisk, super small print, like 1 point by 1 day overall. Like, that's okay though. That's okay.
You know when he put that in there, he was asking for us to comment on it. Come on. So,
yeah,
all right, Edward. Until next week.
Until next week.